So I found this image online and it got me thinking. We've talked about Fujitora and Shiki before, but never to this degree because there are a lot of things that they have in common and the comparison starts to become a little eerie once you start to line things up. So, of course, you know, Fujitora's real name is Isho. Fujitora is his epithet as an admiral. Shiki's epithet is the Golden Lion, and in that way, they are interestingly opposed because purple, which is what Fujitora's namesake leans into, because Fujitora means Wisteria tiger, and Wisteria is a purple flower, so that's why his color scheme is purple. But then Shiki's epithet is the Golden Lion, and of course, he's always been decked out in yellow and gold. Yellow and purple are complementary colors on the color wheel. So in that way, it's funny that they are complementary to one another. But furthermore, the names of the two, meaning the epithets, are also interesting because a tiger and a lion are both big cats. So in that way, they have paralleling color schemes in their names and animals that are similar because they're both big cats. So that's weird. But then both of them are disabled, and these disabilities were inflicted upon themselves for different reasons. For Shiki, he cut off his own feet in order to escape Impel Down, and Isho blinded himself for some unknown reason. Apparently because he got sick of looking at the ugliness of the world. At least that's what's told to us. So in that way, the two parallel again. Then when you talk about their abilities, both of them are swordsmen and technically use their devil fruit powers in conjunction with their swordsmanship, which is pretty odd. The only difference is that Shiki has always been a 2-sword style user and Isho is a 1-sword style user. But talking about their devil fruits are pretty much the same, so much so that one could be more powerful than the other, or they could have some weird relationship in the future, as we've known paramecia fruits to have, because Isho's fruit is the press fruit, in which he can increase and negate gravity, as we've seen him do both. But Shiki has been explained to have the power to negate gravity completely, with his ability called the Float fruit. And this is told to us very specifically in One Piece film Strong World. It's not exactly flight, it's very scientifically explained by Shiki himself, which I found very odd at the time, and we've talked about several times on this channel. But yes, he actually negates gravity. This is actually said. So the Float fruit and the press fruit are indeed kind of similar. But now when you're talking about story beats again, both of them technically were drafted, because from what we know about Rocksteady Zebek, he got all of his crewmates through Davy Back fights. So Shiki lost a Davy Back fight to Rocksteady Zebek and therefore was drafted into the Rocks Pirates, whereas Isho, now Fujitora, was drafted into the Marines along with Ryokyugyu, also known as Aramaki, in an event called the World Military Draft. So both Shiki and Fujitora, based on what we know, have both been drafted into organizations before. But then what is interesting is that both of them have technically been labeled criminals in one way or another and have been imprisoned in a way, because we know that Shiki for the longest time has been a wanted pirate and was locked up and Impel Down. However, Isho, also known as Fujitora, was the captain of the security force for the Owl Kingdom. However, once that kingdom fell in a war, he was branded as a war criminal. But then he was actually in servitude to the Soja Island in the West Blue, working off his debt as a bodyguard because he lost all his money in a gambling hall. It is the world government who bailed him out of this by buying his debt for a large sum of money. So that too is interesting. Also, both Shiki and Fujitora were a part of pretty big historical events because Shiki is often known as the man who broke out of Impel Down and was the first man on record to break out of Impel Down. And Isho is known for being the spearhead that abolished the Seven Warlord system. So in that way, both of them are historical figures in their own right. So that's all I have, and I just thought the comparisons between the two were fairly interesting. And I hadn't really thought about just how similar they were up until now, because of course, a lot of this information has come out within the past 2 years or so. So I found it very interesting and I wanted to share with you all. But with that being said, if you're enjoying the video so far, click the like button. And if you want to see more from me, hit the subscribe button, followed by that bell so you never miss a video. In addition to, if you could, hit the hype button because it really does help. And with that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede. What?